Battlefield 6 just dropped one of the biggest updates yet, but honestly, most of these patch notes don't actually matter to the average player. So instead of reading through 500 balance changes for the next 20 minutes, I'm breaking down the stuff that actually changes the game, from the massive vehicle overhauls to ranked battle royale, recoil changes, and why this update could completely change how Battlefield 6 plays moving forward. Season 3 officially launches today with Railway to Golmud, ranked battle royale, a complete vehicle balance overhaul, weapon recoil changes, new weapons, and honestly, some pretty massive gameplay adjustments hidden throughout the patch notes. Season 3 will be released in 3 parts. After the release of the initial Season 3 update, Warlord Supremacy, on May 12th, expect the release of the Blast Point update on June 9th and High Value Target update on June 30th as the war escalates to return the naval warfare later in Season 4. The biggest long-term change in this update is probably ranked battle royale. This is Battlefield finally pushing harder into competitive progression with ranked ladders, permanent rewards, and leaderboard systems. And honestly, whether people love battle royale or hate it, this changes the direction of Battlefield 6 quite a bit because now there's an actual competitive ecosystem being built around RedSec, and it allows the casual players to play the casual game mode rather than trying to play against all the sweaty people. And with the addition of rank, that's going to create a retention system that will make players want to return as they want to compete for higher ranks. And higher ranks could include reward systems such as weapon camos and weapon skins, as we've seen in other game modes. And there's going to be a potential leaderboard grind, as there already is for levels, kills, so on and so forth. And not to mention the future esports potential, which may not actually be esports as a whole, but could be specific events or other streamer events that they could throw. But honestly, the real biggest gameplay change in this entire update is probably the vehicle overhaul, because DICE didn't just tweak a couple tank values here, they basically touched almost everything related to vehicle combat. One of the biggest problems Battlefield 6 vehicles had before this patch was that some of them felt weirdly sluggish or inconsistent during fights, especially tanks trying to reposition under pressure. This update improves acceleration, turning responsiveness, tracked vehicle mobility, and turret rotation speeds to make the tanks feel more reactive overall. And honestly, this probably sounds minor on paper, but responsiveness completely changes how vehicle feel to play. If tank movement feels smoother and aiming feels more predictable, vehicle combat instantly becomes less frustrating. They also reworked tank damage regeneration and repair behavior to make survivability and counterplay more consistent. One of the biggest examples is that the rear armor interactions and severe damage behavior were adjusted so tanks don't instantly feel deleted from awkward angle interactions anymore. This is actually huge for Battlefield because tank combat before this could sometimes feel really random. Now it sounds like DICE wants vehicle fights to feel more readable and skill-based instead of players exploding from weird damage spikes they barely understood or just sitting in the back of the map. This feels like DICE trying to make vehicle combat less random and more skill/readability focused, instead of players instantly exploding from weird angle interactions. For example, if you push into a fight and you're trying to be the main actual tank when you're playing a tank, instead of receiving 3 rockets to the face and then having to back up and hide, and then you're out of the fight, a lot of players would then resort to playing in the backline and using tanks at range. Well, this is something that Battlefield did not want to see, and so they made these changes. Another really important change people are probably underestimating is the recoil overhaul. Automatic weapons across the board now have more recoil, and controller recoil reduction was also toned down. This has been a lot of different changes to a lot of the recoil systems, but there's also a difference because they're adding a burst mode for the M16, and burst mode is going to be added to multiple SMGs. This is probably one of the biggest gunplay balances shifts we've seen so far because it changes how the consistent automatic weapons feel at range, and there's a lot of weapons that I feel like are either really good or really bad at range, so this will be a very interesting change. Now let's talk about the new map. This is the most anticipated change, and let's see how it works. Railway to Golmud is also probably going to be one of the most talked about parts of this update, especially for long-term Battlefield players. This is Battlefield 6's biggest map yet, and it really feels like they're leaning back into large-scale combined arms chaos, which means they're listening to the feedback from the community for once, which is awesome to see. And honestly, some of the best changes in this update are the smaller quality of life fixes most people are going to skip over completely. Things like better ping responsiveness, improved hit feedback, cleaner revive systems, threat indicators for pilots, and netcode fixes are the kind of stuff that quietly makes the game feel better over time. We have seen a lot of netcode changes that they're wanting to fix with registration, but we have not seen a clear system that has worked. There has always been issues, so let's see if this one is the answer to that problem. Overall, this update honestly feels less like a normal seasonal patch and more like Battlefield 6 trying to define what kind of game it wants to become moving forward. The ranked push, the massive vehicle overhaul, recoil balancing, and all the combat readability improvements point toward a more competitive and polished Battlefield experience overall. Now obviously we'll have to see how all of this actually feels once player gets the hands on with this update, but on paper this is probably one of the most important Battlefield 6 updates we've seen so far.